Hey, what's going on? Welcome to 15 Minutes with Dad, your go-to destination for all things fatherhood. I'm your host, Lyric Williams, here to guide you through our incredible lineup. I want you to know that this is a platform for the family, and let me tell you why. We have a father-daughter podcast, we have a heartfelt healing series, an engaging fatherhood speaks panel, and our newest edition, Dad's Lighthouse, where we shine a light on mental health, family development, and mindset empowerment, and that part is premiering on May 3rd, my birthday. If you are on a quest to transform your fatherhood journey, dive into my new book, Man Up From Our Trauma to Being Impactful Fathers. It's packed with insights and stories to inspire and empower you. But that's not all. Make sure you join our vibrant Discord community and connect with fellow dads on a deeper level. Make sure you join our newsletter at 15minuteswithdad.com. You will be able to find our book on amazon.com as well as at 15minuteswithdad.com/man up. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube to watch our video podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at 15 Minutes with Dad. I hope you're ready to dive into today's episode. Again, thank you for joining me. Welcome to 15 Minutes with Dad. Welcome to today's episode of 15 Minutes with Dad, our new segment, Dad's Lighthouse, where we explore the ups and downs of fatherhood and how we can navigate these experiences with resilience and wisdom. I'm Lyric, your host. Today, we're thrilled to have a very special guest, Suhaiba Neill, owner of the Full Circle business and author of the new book, Like a Girl. Suhaiba brings a unique perspective on empowerment and resilience, which she beautifully captures in her latest work. She is the author of Like a Girl, 22 Leadership Lessons for Women on the Rise, and based on her own experience of growing up with all brothers and working in an all-male dominated industry of 25 years, Like a Girl is a distillation of the knowledge and wisdom she gained throughout her journey into leadership. She shares these 22 lessons in the hopes of helping other women on the rise claim their space and seat at the table. Today, she joins us to discuss not only her new book, but also to dive deep into what it means to get out there and get back up and knowing when to walk away. And you may be wondering, why did I invite Suhaiba Neill on the show for 15 Minutes with Dad? I believe, and she also believes, she says this, that the 21 lessons actually apply to both men and female. And there's one lesson, the woman's intuition, that applies to women. So I think that these principles are very much applicable to the fathers that are listening and to everyone that will listen. You will get a lot out of this conversation. So let's get started and learn more about how these principles can be applied in our lives as parents and fathers. Suhaiba, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to dive into the conversation.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited as well. And before we jump into our main discussion, could you tell us a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to write Like a Girl?
Yes. So as you stated when you read my bio, I've grown up with all brothers, a very sports-oriented household, and then worked in 3 male-dominated industries over the length of my career to date. And my daughter was my inspiration to finish the book. I was thinking about all the lessons I've learned over the course of my life and how things in earlier years prepared me for things that happened and were presented to me in later years. So I decided that that was valuable information. It was my gift to her, but I was also encouraged to share it with the rest of the world as well. So now it's out and about for any and everyone that's looking for some, maybe just a different perspective on leadership and what that means. For me, it's all about authenticity. And that kind of thread runs through the whole book. Just one of those things where I feel like if I could be helpful, which is one of my favorite things, to the next generation of leaders, was my goal.
Nice. And I love that. I love that. And I've read some excerpts of your book and I was like, this is some very powerful stuff. So I'm excited to get into this conversation. And these two topics that we're talking about today, get out of your own way and get back up and knowing when to walk away. These topics stood out to me and I wanted to share them with my listeners. So let's get into it. I know, Suhaiba, resilience is a key theme in your book as well as in life. Can you share a personal story or a key insight that highlights the importance of getting back up after a setback, or particularly in the context of parenting?
Yeah, and so in the book, it's about being little, like literally being young and having older brothers, one that's 7 years older than me, one that's 5 years older than me, and
Mm-hmm.
so lots of sports and lots of street hockey with the brothers and the rest of the kids on the street, and
Yeah.
kind of getting beat up and banged around a little bit. And what that translated to in my leadership roles, which came later in life, was you're going to hit a wall at some point as a leader. If it's in your house, it's in your workplace, whatever it may be. I feel I always tell people too, you are the leader in your own life as well. And so the goal is to not quit. So it can be really easy to give yourself to just throw in the towel and say,
Yeah.
oh, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But in the end, I always tease too, and I tell my daughter, like, when you start things, you really should finish them and see them all the way through. Every once in a while, you start
Y-
something and it takes you down a path where you may come to a realization this isn't quite what I thought, wasn't what I expected, and then you
Pivot. Yeah.
recalibrate. But 9 times out of 10, when you start something, you should finish it, and
I've
especially
told
as a
I've
leader, and it's someone that's setting a tone and an example for others, whether it's in your house or in your workplace.
Yeah, I've talked to my daughter about that very same concept of, and it's something that I learned a little bit later in my life about the consistency. I think that growing up, I learned how to survive, and I spent a lot of my time navigating life as a survivalist and not really cultivating any opportunities that came my way. I can create an opportunity, but to actually build that consistency in and develop that opportunity was a little tough, was tough for me, because I didn't understand that I was just squandering different opportunities. And when things didn't work out, I was just like, all right, it didn't work out. What's the next thing? I think sometimes it's beneficial, given that the circumstances, like you said, you have gone all the way through it and was like, okay, now I need to pivot. But I think it all should be looked at as a learning lesson, more than this is the end result at all times. And if my end result doesn't come out this way, then it doesn't work. That's how I've applied that. And that story, there was a story in your book that really stood out to me, like we said earlier in your personal anecdote, about when you were just wanting to hang out with your brothers all the time. You were like on their tail and you want to be a part of everything that they was doing, but they didn't take it easy on you. You kept getting out there, you kept getting back up. I know, like, throughout that time, you probably got knocked down, beat down, bruised up, and they didn't like take it soft on you and be like, "Hey, you want to get up?" Yeah. Or let's stop, let's take it easy. Like, no, they probably stomped you into the ground and had you figure it out.
Yeah. And I think the world's not going to take it easy on you either. And
Yeah.
knowing that and going into that with that mentality really makes a big difference. So I think you set the tone for yourself, number one, by being determined to finish what you start. And you're also, like I said, showing and leading by example. Because if you've got kids, they're watching. They're watching all the time. They're watching more than you realize. So what you tell them and what you show them are two very different things. And it's easy to throw in the towel and say, forget it, as opposed to finding that pause moment, I call. Like, so for me, it was like get myself back together and take a deep breath and regroup. But it's really crucial. So there's three things I like to talk about too when you're talking about consistency. The only way to be successful at anything is to have the discipline and the consistency and the accountability to get from start to finish.
Mm,
And if you quit every time the going gets tough, you'll never build that kind of muscle, quote unquote,
right.
and you won't be building in that habit of resilience, which you mentioned, to stay the course, learn
Yeah.
what you need to learn. I tease too, like some things I've done and I've started and I've finished and I will never do them again. That first time, I'm like, you know what, I'm seeing this through to the end. And now I know that's not what I was expecting. It's not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go down
Yeah.
that road again. But I think just for your
Well,
personal development, it's really good to stay the course and finish,
yeah.
take the lesson, and then move
I,
on.
how can fathers model this behavior effectively in their daily lives? Like, I think that I like those three concepts that apply to this principle. Now, when we
Right.
talk about making that actionable, this model actionable in their behavior, are there any things that they can do in their daily lives that would help them build up this resilience in themselves and their children?
I think just modeling it as much as possible. So if you say you're going to
Setting.
do something, make sure you do it in a
Mm,
timely fashion. And I think it's interesting that for me at least, the pandemic changed a lot of things because I came home to work from home and my daughter was doing school from home for a while, and it was end of sophomore, beginning of junior year of high school for her.
Mm,
And I'm like, so now she's seeing me at work in a different light, depending on what your situation is now in terms of work and where you're working and what your kids are witnessing. Just really modeling for them that discipline,
yeah.
of, and it's like admitting, like, hey, you know what, today was a really long day. I didn't quite get to where I needed to be, but I'm going to rest and tomorrow I'm going to get back at it, as opposed to leaving things unfinished. If that's the pattern they see consistently, then it's really going to be hard to ask them to do things differently if you're not
Yeah.
modeling it for them.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. That's basically been my experience with most of being a single dad for a huge chunk of my life. But understanding, like, if I'm asking my child to become this thing or take on these behaviors like accountability, discipline, consistency, and I had to model that exact same behavior. So it grew me in so many different ways because I felt like my child needed these principles, but I didn't actually exercise these principles in that same way. Cause she'll be like, but you aren't doing this. So why do I have to do this? And they're modeling what they see. And so when I think about this accountability principle, like my daughter kept me accountable. I would say something out loud specifically for her to hear me. And especially when she was 7 and 8, oh, she will
Right.
not hold back. Like if she see me like half-assed it, she gonna tell me like, Dad, like you said you was gonna do this, but you didn't do this specifically to the way that you said you were gonna do it. And so and it made me backtrack, clutch my pearls a little bit, and figure out how to really navigate fatherhood differently. But yeah, I like those principles, and that's a powerful way to look at resilience and recoveries. Now let's shift our focus when it's necessary to take a step back, which is equally important. How do we
Right.
know when to walk away? Hey, what's going on to all my dads out there? A quick pause on our fantastic journey today to share something special with you. If you've been enjoying the insight stories and dad wisdom we dive into every episode, then you're going to love this. I've poured my heart, soul, and a whole lot of dad experience into my book, Man Up, From Our Trauma to Being Impactful Fathers. It's not just a book. It's a self-help guide. It's a companion for every dad out there looking to strengthen their bond with their kids, navigate the challenges of trauma, fatherhood, and discover new ways to find joy in the most ordinary moments. Inside, you will find stories, anecdotes about my life, practical advice, and those light bulb moments that you'll have to say, aha, so I'm not the only one. Whether you're a new dad, feeling a bit overwhelmed, or seasoned pro looking for fresh perspectives, Man Up, From Our Trauma to Being Impactful Fathers is your go-to guide for all things fatherhood. And because you are a valued listener of 15 Minutes with Dad, I've got a special offer just for you. Head over to 15minuteswithdad.com/manup and use the promo code DAD15 at checkout for an exclusive listener discount. But wait, it gets even better. When you grab your copy today, you'll also get access to a special bonus chapter that's not available anywhere else. It's my way of saying thank you for being a part of our Dadtastic community. All right, let's dive back into our episode.
Yeah, and for me, a lot of this came down to boundaries and just the dynamic in the world of male versus female and women versus men in the workplace, especially, and what the expectations are around those like traditional quote unquote roles that we fill. Um, but I think, and it's interesting, I just met a woman, she talked to our group about shifting the energy and talked
Mm-hmm.
about how you have the physical energy you expend every day, you have the cognitive, mental energy you expend every day, and then you have emotional energy, which actually we use the most of on any given day without necessarily realizing it. When you're in a space that you know no longer feels good or right for you, it becomes exhausting very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said at the beginning, you're the leader of your life. And if you can't stand up for yourself when you're in a situation that no longer serves you, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And by your default, you're also doing a disservice to those around you. It's interesting. I was on with a friend today, a gentleman who we check in every week because he's got some goals for this year and I've got some goals, and he's my accountability partner to make
Mm-hmm.
sure we keep working towards things. And he was in a job that didn't love, but he's like, I need to stick it out for the year because I have financial goals I want to meet. And then he finally realized, partly on his own and over the course of some conversations that we had as well, he didn't need to stick it out for a year. He had other options. And so he put in his 2 weeks notice and he's already
Yeah.
looking into other options. And what
Yes.
happens is when you stay somewhere you're not meant to be, you delay what is meant for you. And like I said, that burnout is real, and it's, I think, a little bit more prevalent than ever now because of the pace that we're all running at.
Yeah.
Um, and it can sound dramatic to walk away, but at the same time, what's the flip side of the coin? Sacrificing yourself and your mental well-being, and that all dissipates and shows up at
Yeah.
home as
Could you
well.
could you discuss a moment when you realized that walking away was the best choice for you?
I think, well, it's interesting, and I've done it a couple of times. The one time I did it where it wasn't really like absolutely positively, I wasn't in a horrible job, but because my life had changed, it really was the best choice for me and the next chapter of my journey. Job out of college was with the Philadelphia 76ers, and I spent 5 seasons there. And in the process of being there, I got married and had a baby. And
Mm.
having a newborn and 41 home games and working nights and weekends and having hour days a couple days a week just was not conducive to all of our well-being. So I love the job. I'm a season ticket holder now. Basketball is my favorite sport, but as far as my life went, it just didn't make sense anymore. I had to make that decision that, hey, you know what? What's best for all of us is for me to move into something new. And then in other instances, it's just a matter of, like I said, establishing boundaries. And I always tell people, because it's in a family business, it's tricky because you work with, a parent or a sibling and people that have
Right.
known you your whole life. And so that's a very different dynamic. Um, but without those boundaries, it's very difficult to be your best self.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
having actually the friend I was on the phone with today too, I'm like, it's not personal, it's business. Like, they hired you to do this. This is what they said they were going to give you. They're
Right.
not holding up their end of the bargain. It's not personal. Like, you have a
Right.
life to live, and just
Yeah.
as much as they have a right to their half of the story, you have your right to your half of the story as well.
Yeah, and I can definitely attest to that. There was two moments where I made some really big pivots in my life. The one was when I had first got married and I left my relationship. It was extremely toxic. It was very, very hurtful, stressed me out. We didn't spend a lot of time together. There was affairs taking place, and I was just like, I'm staying here hoping to work things out. My mental health was so shot. I just was like, yo, I gotta figure out something because I cannot do this anymore. And I put in a 1 week's notice to to my ex-wife, and I told her next week, and next week I'm leaving. I had found a little hole in the wall. It was literally nothing. A friend of mine was moving out. There was no lease. That was like basically subletting and paying somebody like $300 to $400 to live in a studio apartment in this shack in the hood. I was just like, I just needed to get out here. And I haven't gone back since. I didn't like, it was no, we've since talked and worked through those situations, like as far as like forgiving each other and like moving on from that and closing that chapter. But it was at a point where I was like, I'm either going to commit violence or I'm going to leave. I'm going to have to like separate my mind and my body from this space, from this atmosphere. And I made the choice to just leave with the 1 week's notice. And then obviously in work, it's happened a lot. Like in this day and age, turnover is so high in most organizations, and it's usually hard to keep employees if you're not doing a great job. There was I was working at a research firm, and they're wanting these high capacities. They want to like, I want to visualize data. I want it to look like this. I want to do this. And I was like, hey guys, y'all want analysts? Let me be the data, and let me just build up your capacity and build out your Power BI and your Tableau experience so you can see data in its most beautiful way. And I started working on it. And then they was like, then 10 days in, they was like, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? I'm like, yo, it's not done. Y'all, it takes time. I have to actually get all the data, and then I have to visualize the data. So it was just like a lot of, they wanted what I could give, but they weren't prepared to not even just wait, but they weren't prepared to deliver the resources that I needed to make sure that I provided what I needed. And I realized like my skill sets are valuable elsewhere. And
Right.
so I had a meeting with them. We had my little 60-day, I don't even know, 60, 90-day review. And then we had a conversation. I was like, look, no hard feelings, but this is not working out for me. And they was like, yeah, we agree. Anytime they wanted to keep the relationship cordial, but they was like, yeah, it's just not working. We had hopes for other stuff. But yeah,
And I
like you
think
said, when you know it's time to go, it's time to go.
if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else is really going to do it either.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we struggle with that a little bit, but you're, like you said, you're just as valuable, and it's important that we all have environments that are conducive to our success. One of the reasons the book is called 22 Leadership Lessons for Women on the Rise is because for me personally, I feel like hopefully I'm continuing to evolve. And next week I'll learn something new and be a little bit better at something than I am this week. And year over year, I'm going to continue to evolve. So the goal is continued growth. And I don't think it's necessarily in the light of trying to be hurtful, but not everybody can go with you through all of those iterations, you
Yeah,
know? So
for sure.
again, divorced as well, single mom, tried as hard as I could to make it work and realized that like this is no longer when we got together in the beginning, we were in alignment. And then as time moved on, I feel like I teased that we were on the same path and then the road split and I went one way and he went the other.
Yeah.
And there was just really no way to meet back in the middle somewhere that worked well for both of us. So
Yeah.
it was healthier for us to not be together. And we're in a much better place now because of the fact that we don't have to literally live in the same house and make those big decisions together. And I've
Yeah.
continued to grow and evolve. And I think I've done things that I probably would not have done had I stayed in that relationship. And as hard as it was, I tease that like I'm the one that didn't believe in divorce until I found myself in a place where there really was no other option if I wanted to continue to be my true self.
That's a
My
that's a
parents have
hard
been,
that's a hard decision to make. That's a tough place to be, especially after making a commitment through to family,
right,
commitment through relationship, and loving this person like that. Like I said it in a short span, and it was like sound easier said than done. But in the moment, a lot of fathers, they tend to have they in these relationships, and they start to put all of what they can do in a relationship, and then the woman, they still feel like the woman is not satisfied with all the work that they're doing, but it's just they're not listening in a way that the woman's communicating on what she needs. And I'm not saying that was your case, but a lot of stories in a lot of these group chats that I'm in supporting fathers, and the chat that I have on Discord, we talk through these scenarios on like their problems with their relationship, their problems with their wife, and their disagreements on these different things that come into play, and they either overcommit themselves or they undercommit themselves and end up walking away. And what signs should dads look for to recognize when it's time to walk away?
I think when you can no longer honor who you are at the core, and like I said, my goal with everything I do is to be as authentic as possible.
Mm,
Um, because I think when we're being our true self and our authentic self and our best self, that should be the goal for all of us. It's funny too because it made me think of another chapter, which is also somebody asked me, they're like, "Oh, tell me all the chapters in your book." I'm like, "Yeah, I need to review the list because I can't tick them off one by one by heart." But
right.
there's one about communication and relationships, and I think that's the other thing that I've always done my best to focus on, and I've seen more and more as I've progressed through my role in leadership in different phases and stages of my life. You got to have open two-line communication going
Yeah.
and be honest with people, and
Yeah.
relationships at the end of the day really
I
matter more. So like for me too, leaving a job or leaving a relationship or leaving a situation that doesn't fit for you can still be done 9 times out of 10 gracefully. Actually, I'll tell you another little funny story. So in family business, we used to rent a bunch of properties, and one of the things we rented were these garages for extra storage. And the time came we didn't really need them anymore. And so I sent this email off to the guy. I never met him in my life. I said, thank you for all the years of service. We no longer need this space anymore. So tell me what the process is to go ahead and not renew the lease. And so very polite, cordial, professional about it. So fast forward maybe a year at the most, and it turns out my daughter and his daughter end up in preschool together.
Oh, wow.
And we're at this mixer on like back to school mixer that they had
Yeah.
and chatting up with this couple. And they're like, oh, what do you do? I said, oh, John Neal Painting, family business. My dad owns it. He's like, I got the most polite email from someone there that said we no longer need the garages and thank you. And like reiterated what I said. And I jokingly raised my hand. I'm like, that was from me. And so I should have been rude and obnoxious about it.
Yeah.
And then would have had to deal with either not admitting to the fact that it was me or having a kind of a weird relationship starter for
Yeah.
the dad of what turned out to be one of my daughter's best friends a couple of years. So I think it's always, I tease, and I'm always the first to say that I'm still a work in progress as well. But
Yeah.
telling the truth with love is the goal in everything.
Yes.
I talk about getting back to neutral. So it's not about you or me or I and me and my and pointing fingers, but being truthful with yourself and then evaluating the situation, having those difficult conversations and keeping the lines of communication open
Yeah.
and telling the truth with love. Like, hey, is there a way to resolve this so that everybody wins? Or is there a better path forward for all of us so that we can all thrive? And I tease now that my former husband were meant to be. We just weren't meant to be forever, is what
Right.
it came down to. And that's
I really
okay.
like that point that you made, that it just expressing the truth with love, right? Like, I think that conflict, if most people don't have a great communication skills, and when conflict comes about, the resolving of that conflict gets thrown off to the side when communication is just terrible. And
Right.
what I've seen a lot of is that men aren't really taught this beautiful communication skills overall. Like, it depends on what generation they're coming from. It's all these different aspects, but in generally speaking, you'll find that men communicate. Obviously, we communicate differently than women, but the communication skill level and emotional intelligence is so low in most cases that when it comes to expressing those simple things, that those resolving conflicts, we don't say it with
Right.
love. We say it with how upset we are because we've held it in for so long, and it blows up out of our mouth and make things worse. But I love that statement that you said, expressing the truth with love, and you can find that middle ground in that conflict space. It may not mean that it'll be solved. It'll mean that you've communicated it, the other person understands you communicated, and y'all resolve the situation as a whole in an
Right.
amicable way. I like that. I
Yeah.
really
And so
like that.
that's
Thank you for touching that.
the tip for all the guys out there. If you read the book, you'll get a different perspective on
Yeah.
leadership, which I think is always helpful. Um, and like I said, I like to explore different genres and different voices and different perspectives just for having a more well-rounded approach to things and being better, maybe seeing something from a different point of view. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So recognizing when to walk away is definitely crucial for maintaining our mental health and well-being. So as we wrap up, let's pull together some concluding thoughts. So Haiba, as we conclude today's episode, what could you just give one piece of actionable advice for our listeners, something they could start implementing today to enhance their approach to co-parenting?
oh, co-parenting. I think one is for me, the kids always come first. And
Mm,
they're depending on what stage and phase you are in, if you're in a relationship still and co-parenting together or you're separated and trying to co-parent from two different households. That was always my first thought. And I had stepkids and then had my daughter as well, so the kids always came first in terms of what's best, and obviously doing my best and our best not to have difficult conversations in front of them if that was possible. I
yeah.
think being clear, like you said, and a couple of those chapters in there about communication and relationships and having difficult conversations and being willing to get authentic and vulnerable about
Yeah.
who you are and where you are so that you can have those conversations openly. And I call it getting back to neutral, like trying to stay in a place where it's not about judgment. It's just about this is how I feel and this is how you feel and how do we make this work together.
Yeah.
And then again, like I said, really modeling for your kids what it is to be, the leader of your life, to be authentic in your pursuit and your purpose. And also, and I've done it myself, it's funny because she still has, I think, it hanging up in her closet. My daughter, there was a time when I actually wrote her a little apology because we'd had teenage years are fun.
I'm in
You're
it.
not
I'm in
there
it right
yet, get
now.
ready.
I'm in it right now. I'm
And
suffering.
sometimes it is in the heat of the moment, you say things that you wish you hadn't said, and being able, like I realized as a parent, like I have to admit to her that I messed up, like that was my bad.
Yeah.
And so having them see that is also really important, as opposed to like I'm the parent so I'm never wrong. It's not
Yeah.
true. Like I said, we all have bad days, we all have moments where we struggle a little bit, and
Yeah.
being real about that, I think, makes it easier for them as well to be real about it.
I definitely love that. Definitely love that. Thank you, Suhaiba, for joining us and sharing your invaluable insights. To our listeners, I encourage you to check out Like a Girl, available now. It's a fantastic resource for anyone looking to empower themselves and their daughters. And if you have women in your life that are on the rise, make sure you get this book for more insights like what you heard today. You can give us some kind of rating on whatever platform you're listening on. Give us a rating and visit our website at 15minuteswithdad.com. I will link Suhaiba's book, Like a Girl, 22 Leadership Lessons for Women on the Rise. I will link it in the podcast notes on that website at 15minuteswithdad.com/20. That's 15minuteswithdad.com/20. And to subscribe for more episodes. So thank you for listening. And until next time, keep striving and thriving in your parenting journey. Suhaiba, thank you for joining us. You have left us with amazing insights.
Well, thank you for having me and letting me share a different perspective for the dads
Absolutely.
and my journey into leadership.
Absolutely. I love it. And we'll stay in touch. You take care. And just like that, we've hit an end of another epic journey here at 15 Minutes with Dad. I'm your host, Lyric, and I am thrilled to have shared this time with you. But guess what? The conversation is far from over. Want to dive deeper into the Dadverse? Check out our website at 15minuteswithdad.com and join our vibrant community on Instagram, Discord, and TikTok for your daily dose of dad inspiration camaraderie. And here's something special. Subscribe to our newsletter at 15minuteswithdad.com for exclusive goodies and behind-the-scene peeks you won't find anywhere else. Got a burning question or a dad moment that made you proud? We're all ears. Submit your questions and share those special moments with us for a chance to be featured and shout out on our show. It's your time to shine in our dad community, so tap in with our Discord, and our server is at 15 Minutes with Dad. So tap in for that. Engage with the community, and you will be featured on our show. Each week we will do another feature, so join in. Love today's episode. Spread the love by sharing it with a friend and leaving us a review. Let's get the word out and grow our awesome dad family, because guess what? When you give us a review and you rate our podcast, you give everybody the chance to enjoy what you've enjoyed about this podcast as well. So mark your calendars, because new episodes drop every Thursday of the week. Ready for more heartwarming stories, laughs, and dad wisdom? We can't wait to have you back. But until next time, keep being the amazing dad you are. Every day is a new adventure and every moment is special. Catch you on the next episode. Love, peace, and chicken grease.